Hi, Calvary Chapel, Santa Barbara church family. In these short videos, what we're doing is we're starting from where Pastor Tommy left off last Sunday in Mark chapter 15. And we're just going to walk our way all the way through the rest of Mark chapter 15 to Resurrection Sunday on that beautiful Easter morning when we consider it starting at Mark 16 together. We're doing this in 4 parts on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And today we're talking about the effect of Jesus' death at the cross, the effect at Calvary. We start here in Mark chapter 15, verse 38, where we read, "Then the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom." Jesus was still on the cross. He had yielded up his life. He had made his great cry, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He had entrusted his mother, Mary, into the care of the only disciple to have any time at the scene of crucifixion at all, and that was the disciple, John. Jesus gave that last final cry to Telestai, "It is finished." He yielded his spirit to his God and Father, and he gave up his life. His life was yielded. His dead body was still attached to the cross. Well, what was the effect of the death of Jesus? Here was the very first effect described for us in verse 38. The veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now, you know that veil, which was actually something more we would call a curtain, that curtain that separated the holy place from the most holy place, the holy place to the room, the most holy place that represented the very throne room of God. The tearing of that temple curtain or veil signified that man now had free access to the throne of grace by the work of Jesus on the cross. It meant that no one should ever think again that God dwells in temples made with hands. Now, significantly, as this curtain that symbolized the separation between God and man, as that curtain or veil was torn in two, it was torn from top to bottom. God tore it. God tore it from heaven instead of man tearing it from earth. I find this very interesting. Acts chapter 6, verse 7 says that in the days of the early church, a great many of the priests were obedient to the faith. And it would have been the priests who knew about this veil being torn from top to bottom. Perhaps that torn veil demonstrated to them the greatness of the work of Jesus. What a remarkable thing that would have been among the priests. They would say to each other, "Did you know what happened as soon as that man, Jesus of Nazareth, died? The veil of the temple, that great curtain that separated us from that place that symbolized the very throne room of God, it tore in two, and it tore from the top to the bottom." By the way, it's probably also how the torn veil became common knowledge, because those priests who were obedient to the faith told the story, seeing it with their own eyes. Now, that was the first effect, the torn veil. Here's the second effect in verse 39, the testimony of the centurion. Look at it here, Mark chapter 15, verse 39, we read this. "So when the centurion who stood opposite him saw that he cried out like this and breathed his last, he said, 'Truly this man was the Son of God.'" That was the exclamation of the centurion supervising the crucifixion scene. And think about it. That scene of the crucifixion of Jesus was so striking that even this hardened Roman centurion confessed this was the Son of God. And you have to say that man had probably supervised the death of perhaps hundreds of other men by crucifixion, but he knew there was something absolutely unique about this man, Jesus of Nazareth. Matter of fact, on the same day, 2 other men were crucified, one on the right and one on the left hand of Jesus. But he knew there was something different about Jesus. In that moment, and even just in one brilliant aspect, the centurion saw Jesus for who he was. And the centurion is a picture of everybody who comes to Jesus through the cross. You see, at the cross, people saw that it was Jesus, that Jesus was, in fact, the Son of God, and that this fulfilled Jesus' promise in John 12:32, where he said, "If I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all peoples to myself." Now, if there's anything that I would sort of disagree with in the centurion statement, is only the verb tense. Did you see what he said? This was the Son of God. It really seemed like maybe the Roman centurion thought that Jesus was dead and no longer the Son of God. No, the more proper verb tense to use is to say, this is the Son of God. Because, hey, Roman centurion and Romans throughout the world at that time, the Roman Empire has not seen the last of Jesus of Nazareth. That was the second effect. The first, the tearing of the veil. The second, the declaration of the centurion. Here's the third effect, the revelation of the faithful. Look at verses 40 and 41, where we read this. There were also women looking on from afar, among whom were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the Less and of Joses, and of Salome, who also followed him and ministered to him when he was in Galilee, and many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem. Verse 40 tells us that there were also women looking on from afar. Finally, the very most faithful disciples of Jesus were revealed. They were his female followers. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, Salome, all mentioned in verse 40. And then verse 41 mentions even many other women. And isn't it interesting to see that Jesus not only made an impact upon rough and hardened men like the Roman centurion, but he also made an impact on women, even women like Mary Magdalene, the formerly demon-possessed woman who followed Jesus from Galilee. You'll find that in Luke chapter 8, verse 2. You know, before we leave our brief look today, I want you to think of who was there at the cross. You have men and women. You have Jews and Gentiles. You have rich and poor. You have slave and free. You have a cross-section of all of humanity. You have high class and no class. You have the world gathered around there at the cross. Truly, what Jesus said was true, that when he died on the cross, he would draw all men to himself. Has he drawn you? Have you thanked Jesus today for the great work that he did and the effect that it had on all of these people, the effect of tearing the veil from top to bottom, the effect of speaking to the heart of a hardened Roman centurion, the effect of revealing the true followers of Jesus Christ, or at least his most faithful followers? I hope it's had the same effect on you.